Okay, well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for our virtual Hall of Fame panel. I am Sarah Carlson-Walrath, and I am the Development Director at the Reading Center. For those that are watching this and are new, sorry, I just occasionally have to admit people to our room. For the Reading Center is a 70-year-old nonprofit located in Rochester that serves the needs of people with dyslexia. We offer testing, tutoring, and group classes for struggling readers, and we have an accredited Orton Gillingham Training Institute for adults, both in Rochester and online. So we are still, even though it's snowing, it is October, and October is Dyslexia Awareness Month. So this is our final event, our final awareness month for October. But we hold these events like this panel discussion to help spread evidence-based information about dyslexia and what works for struggling readers to learn how to read. So for our panelists, we've done many panel discussions over the years, but never online. So this is a first for us, and I appreciate everyone. Some we're learning new technology to be able to do this for the first time. So earlier this spring, the Reading Center inducted our very first class of Hall of Fame members. And in all, there were 9 adults with dyslexia, as well as our late founder, Gene Osmond, who were inducted into that Hall of Fame. 4 of those panelists are here tonight, and we're gonna learn a little bit more about them. And if you want to learn even more about the Hall of Fame and the other inductees that are not here tonight, you can find that information on our website. So just briefly, I'll tell you who is here this evening. We have Ann Peterson, we have Carl Anderson, we have Jeff Price, and we have Greg Nesler. So I don't need to introduce them. I will let them introduce themselves, but I wanted to say thank you to all of you. And if you are not able to stay for this whole event, just know that it's being recorded and you can see all of it in its entirety via our website starting tomorrow. So I am gonna start moving left to right on my screen. I'm gonna start with Ann and just let Ann introduce herself. So if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself, what you became in your career and whether or not you were a Reading Center alumnus. So thank you, Ann. You can start.
Thank you, Sarah. I was not a Reading Center alumnus, but I was an audiologist at Mayo Clinic for more than 30 years and worked specialty in cochlear implants. And I'm very happy to get to participate in this event. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, how about you, Carl?
Thank you. So I'm Carl Anderson, and I grew up here in Rochester. I'm a product of the public school system here. I am an alumnus of the Reading Center, and I'm an attorney. I'm the principal attorney at a 4-attorney firm here in Rochester, aptly named Anderson Law Firm. And so I'm happy to be here tonight.
Thank you. Okay, moving to Jeff.
I'm Jeff Price, and I did attend the Reading Center when I was younger, and then I was also on the Reading Center board. I have a family business here in town with my 2 brothers. We have 5 companies, and we sell our products in about 20 states. And then in the states we're not in, we license our products out. So we're into landscape products, pavers, retaining walls, outdoor living type of stuff. So.
Great, thanks, Jeff. And Greg.
I'm Greg Nesler. Grew up here in Rochester. I am an alumnus. I have a company, Rochester Plumbing and Heating. And I've been on the board for the Reading Center one time before, and I was asked to come back on again for another period of time. And just great to be here. And was glad to be asked to sit on this board, or on this talk.
Great, thank you all for that. So I think we're gonna try to, we'll keep this to an hour. We'll be done at 8 o'clock, but we'll kind of divide this up a little bit into segments. And the first segment I think people would be interested in hearing, when did you discover that you had dyslexia, and what was that experience? What was that experience like for you? So let's go reverse order. We're going to start with you, Greg. So when did you realize that you were having trouble with reading, and what was the next steps that you and your family took?
Well, I was privileged to have Gene Osmond from the very beginning. Back when they would let Orton Gillingham come into the school district, I was in 6th grade and I couldn't pronounce my letters correctly. Like S was a problem and B was a problem. But really discovered it, that was in 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, but it was 10th grade is when I was found out to really have it. And that was 14 years old. And that's when I found out that I was really struggling. Just disliked school a lot. And we'll talk more about that as we go.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you wanted to hear?
Yeah, so 14. Okay. Because I think what about the four of you is that there's a pretty diverse spectrum of all of these experiences. So let's go. Thanks for that, Greg. So let's go to Jeff.
Yeah, so I first remember having a problem with reading when I was in kindergarten. And it was one of those times where, you would memorize a book, and I went in front of my class and I didn't know any of the words in the book, but since I had it memorized, I thought I would be able to read it to them. Well, I got nervous and didn't read a thing that day. And that was kind of the first sign. I don't know exactly when I started to be tutored, but it was by Norma McNary. And I think I was either in the 1st or 2nd grade. So it was very early. And I had Norma McNary for 4 years. And then I went on to Sharon Rome. And then I had Sharon Rome from the 5th grade up until 8th grade. And that really gave me the foundation. I was really lucky to get it caught early on. And through those 6 to 8 years I had of tutoring, it really gave me the foundation to help me read. I was fortunate to get it caught early.
No, thank you. Carl.
Well, I think that for me, early on, they would set kids into grade levels or reading levels. And so I became aware quite early that I was struggling because I was always in the lowest level. And at least at that time in school, it was very clear who was really achieving and reading and who wasn't. I don't remember this particular incident, but my mother retells the story about me coming home, and it must have been about 1st grade, and saying, "Why am I so dumb? My friends are so much smarter than I am." And that really got her as an advocate, looking around and talking with teachers. And the other thing she says is that when she was speaking with my 4th grade teacher, and she brought up the possibility of dyslexia, the teacher said, "I'm so glad that you said that, because we're not allowed to say dyslexia. We're not allowed to use that term with parents. But if a parent brings it up, then we can discuss it." And that led to me being tested at the Reading Center, which at that time was in the basement of the Rome household, and then to my tutor that I had. And I believe I tutored for about 4 years. And so I was lucky that I had a parent that was in there and advocating and helping me. And I think that the school I was in, I received some tutoring during the school day. That the principal and teacher allowed me to stay home over the lunch hour a little bit longer and return to school later in the day. So for me, it was just sort of, I think many kids do, you compare yourself to what your friends are doing. And so I recognize it early on.
Yeah, no, great. Thank you. Anne. So Anne of the 3 is not a Reading Center alumnus. So Anne, what was your experience of discovering that you were dyslexic like?
Well, I was very relieved that there was something that could be treated and worked with. I didn't I didn't even know the word until I was an adult. I was with a friend who was a new teacher, and she was studying to be a reading specialist, and just kind of was hearing about dyslexia. And I was staying with her a few days, and she noticed, we were visiting as we were getting ready for the day, and she noticed that whenever I put my makeup on, I'd put on one side and then I'd put on the other side, and I never crossed the median. And that was kind of a clue to her to bring up dyslexia, tell me about what it was. And so when I got home, I had a friend that was an Art and Gillingham instructor. And so she tested me and found that indeed I was dyslexic. So I learned about it and then started having lessons myself as an adult. But my early childhood, my kindergarten, well, not kindergarten, we didn't do much in kindergarten, but first grade, as we started to learn to read, we were using what was called the whole word method at that time, where, you know, you'd look at a ball and see the word ball, and then you remembered that's what it was. There was no phonetic training, sounding out words or anything. So that wasn't a real helpful start. My parents didn't know I had any trouble until about fourth grade. I was born just at the end of World War II, and at least in our area in Michigan, books were very scarce, and so our school wouldn't allow us to take books home. So my parents didn't really know that I was even having difficulty until fourth grade, when my fourth grade teacher called my mother in for a conference. They didn't have regular conferences in those days. And she told my mother that I was really just a really sweet little girl, and that I'd make somebody a wonderful wife, but not to expect me to go on beyond high school in my education, because I just wouldn't be able to do that. Another thing I remember is I think I was very naturally left-handed, but my father and my teachers believed that we live in a right-handed world, and so I was to be right-handed. So I had to eat right-handed, and I had to learn to print and write right-handed. And I can remember I'd sit behind our couch with paper and pencil, and I'd practice writing left-handed, but I knew I didn't dare let anybody know that. And so I'm really very ambidextrous even to this day, but I think that really kind of messed up my dominance. Yeah. So I didn't like school until, fortunately, by junior high, I had some wonderful, a science teacher that was like animal biology, where we got to dissect things and so forth, and a math instructor that saw some potential in me and got me into advanced math classes. And one thing that I can remember, you ask, you know, how your peers felt about you. I really never felt that I can remember pressure from my peers, but I remember in high school, I was taking an English lit course, and that instructor, well, my mom, whenever I'd write a paper, my mom would read it and correct the spelling, and then I'd rewrite it and so forth. So I always turned in perfect work. But if I had to write something in class, there was a bit of a discrepancy. And of course, the teacher wondered about that. And so, you know, she realized that I was struggling with spelling and reading. And so every noon, the whole time that I had her, I went to her room and she worked with me in spelling and so forth. Of course, using techniques that didn't really do me any good. But I missed being with my friends. And so that was kind of a situation of, you know, being taken away from friends, but it also really taught me to work hard. So anyway, that's a long explanation, but kind of.
No, that's helpful. That's the next thing I wanted to talk a little bit about. Challenges that we're in this school section of, you know, so Anne, you were touching on, you know, some of the challenges in school. You know, you learn it, you know, being taught using methods that weren't necessarily the right way for you to learn. Let's going backwards the other way. We'll go to Carl. And I think the question, if you have anything that you want to add to this, is what were some of the biggest challenges that you faced in school by having dyslexia?
Well, spelling was always very difficult for me, so that was a struggle. Grammar is always understanding the structure and being able to use that was always very difficult. I was lucky in that my parents were voracious readers, so we had books laying all over the house. And if I showed any inclination, a typical type of book or author, they would buy 3 of them for me. So I developed lots of cheats or workarounds just because of reading a fair amount. Once I was able to read effectively, I just read all the time, and that really helped me. I do a lot of writing, but it's all just through kind of gut knowledge and experience reading, not because I necessarily understand the grammar or whatever. So for me, I think I was very lucky in that, and that helped me as I progressed through school.
Yeah, great. Jeff, do you want, I'll come back to you, Anne. Jeff, what were some of your biggest challenges in school?
Well, I did not like school much. And the reason I didn't like it was I really studied hard, but then I'd always get the worst grade. And it got very frustrating after a while when you would, you'd spend the entire night studying for a test, and you'd get the test back. And I always thought I aced them. I always felt very good, but then I'd get a D or, a 60%. And then I would be sitting next to one of my buddies who studied 5 minutes before the test and they got a B. And so I really started to dislike school that way. What was hard for me was reading was very difficult, writing. I still have difficulty writing. But it was just hard. And, but the best thing that came out of school for myself was I knew that if I was gonna be successful, I had to work hard. I had to work harder than all of my classmates to get a lesser score. And I was able to carry that on through high school. And then eventually when I got into college and the subject matter got more interesting and I was starting to take business classes and things I cared about, that's when I was able to excel. And it was through all of that hard work before that I feel laid the foundation. And it was because of the fact that it was hard that has really helped me in my successes later in life. Because as we all know, life's not easy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, thank you for that. Greg, what were some of your biggest challenges in school?
Well, what everybody has said, we're all in the same boat. I dislike school because, again, I studied hard, thought I'd get a good grade. They pass them out, you'd see your grade on the paper, you would just get down in the dumps. And then the dislike of school came. Spelling was bad. Math, I was very good at math. And so I fed off of math. One day, though, I listened, and I always listen well. And I asked a reading teacher, and I didn't go to Gene until my junior year of high school, and I would go 3 times a week in the Rome basement. And she gave me some crib sheet things to do, but verbal tests, I'd listen to the teacher, she'd explain it. I was listening, and then when the test came, I asked one day, can I just go into your office and take the test verbally versus writing it down? And she gave me the test verbal, and I got a high B. And she realized right then that I couldn't see, or I couldn't write or remember or read, but yet verbally, it was all there. I mean, it was just amazing. So, and then if I did not have an interest in what I was reading, there was no way. You know, I could read a sentence and not even comprehend what I just read, or I'd read backwards. Or if I get frustrated, my mind would just shut off. But yet, if I was listening and took direction or listened to, you know, the presidents or whatever on who they were, I could just shout it out, you know, and pass that way. But then they couldn't do that all the time. And then they'd always tell me, you got to hurry up. You're going too slow. You got to hurry up. Well, that frustrated me too. And so right now, I do a lot of things that way. I carry a dictionary. I still have the dictionary from when I was going to Gene's Osmond, and it's wore out. I mean, I got so much tape and duct tape on it, and little notes in there, you know, and I still can't spell. Like, you know, E before I except after C, you know, I'd still yell out to the secretarial staff, how do you spell this word? Well, then they came in and said, instead of asking, why don't you just type it in on Google? And then, well, no, it's fast for you to tell me. So today, I still struggle with it daily, but yeah, that's some of the stuff.
Yeah, no, I mean, I hear a common theme that, you know, when you did finally get to a subject that you really liked, you could see that you could excel there. How important that is.
I like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in that way, that had my interest, then I would focus in. But anything else, like picking a book up and just go read a book, no way. Even today, no way.
No way.
But yet if it interests me, I'll read it.
Interesting. So Anne, you wanted to comment on that. So some difficult, what was the biggest challenge in school?
Oh, I just wanted to comment on Carl's statement about, you know, his writing and so forth. I think one thing that we dyslexic have is a pretty big vocabulary, because if we can't spell this word, we probably know 3 other ones that we can use in place of it that we can spell. So that's what I wanted to comment about.
Interesting. No, that's a good strategy, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Well, I am. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, just a couple things that were frustrating to me in school was when I couldn't spell a word and I'd go up to the teacher and ask, you know, how do you spell this word? She'd say, well, go look it up in the dictionary. The dumbest advice you can think of. I mean, if you don't know how the word starts, how are you going to find it in the dictionary? So those kinds of comments, I think, are things that the teachers and parents and so forth really need to kind of
Think about.
pay attention and think about.
Yep, absolutely. So when we do these sessions and people are listening, I think occasionally it is students, older students, but it's a lot of parents, and sometimes it's teachers. I'm curious, because I think this is always so interesting. Who in your family, you know, either older than you or your own children and grandchildren, how many of you, and you don't have to share if you don't want to, but how many of you have dyslexia in your families?
I'm the only one.
Oh, really?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, because I saw him.
Yeah,
You're the only one who
I'm
said
the only one. My 2 younger sisters thought I was dumb. You know, they ride me all the time.
didn't get it. And nobody in your neither of your parents is dyslexic, or
Nope.
no?
No.
Yeah. You are the lucky one, Greg.
Yep, I'm the promised one.
Yep, you're the promised one. Well, no, that's interesting, because it's you know, thought of as being very familial in lines. So interesting. See, we are a diverse group, right?
That's right.
So in the school, this will be the last question kind of in the school section, and that would, and some of you have talked about this a little bit, but in terms of not when you were younger and starting in 1st and 2nd grade, but as you got older, were there ways in which you were successful advocating for yourself and what you needed? You know, Greg talked about how he was like, let's do this test verbally. I think I think I can show you what I know if we do it verbally. Can any of you think of examples of things that were helpful to you? And this could be in school or in high school or in college, if that's, if you can think of anything to share. So if a student today was thinking, what might help me? What helped you if you were able to advocate for something? And if you can't think of anything, that's okay. I'm just curious.
Well, I can say that that I think that it caused me to reach out more to teachers to ask for help, particularly when I was in college. The need to go in during office hours and seek out that one-on-one help. So I think that was something that was an advantage, or to advocate for oneself. There certainly they weren't giving any different test modules or more time. There was nothing like that when I was going to school, but just that additional one-on-one help was good for me.
Oh, good.
You know, I would agree with Carl. I would say in high school, I started to, but then in college, I would seek out teachers. And I think that's very important because, you know, if a teacher knows you care, I think they spend more time with you on the subject, and that helped. And then I would always have a few friends that I would rely on to proof my papers. And I used my mom early on, and then in high school and in college, I had friends, and I was very honest with them that, you know, hey, I didn't necessarily tell them that I was dyslexic. It's just I knew I was smart, and so maybe that was the reason why I felt comfortable allowing them to proof my paper. But I think that was very important, was having people that you could rely on, friends that that could get you through on papers.
Good idea. How about
I
you?
know,
Yeah, Greg.
I know in college, back when I was going to college, they had the TAs, the teacher's assistants. And I would go in and take the test verbally. And I told them I'm dyslexic. Let's just start asking me the questions. And, you know, the hour test probably took 20 minutes because I'd answer 4 or 5 questions in one answer. And they knew that I knew what I read. And now this is strictly for reading. This wasn't for math, but for anything like economics, you know, still today, ethos, logos, and pathos, people say, well, you know that? Well, that's economics right there. And I explained that. So a test that took the whole class an hour, I've done in 15 minutes. It's amazing, you know, how you can answer questions more than, you know, one answer could do 5 questions of the test. So that's what I did.
Yeah, I think that's a great piece of advocacy. And how about you, especially since you were not able to say, hey, I'm struggling in this way because I'm dyslexic. What ways in which were you successful advocating for what you needed in school?
Yeah, I don't think I did. I don't think I advocated. I just studied really super hard and you know, had really good teachers, and yeah, I'm just really impressed as how he advocated and thought up doing oral tests and so forth. That's wonderful. And something certainly that we would want our parents and teachers watching to be aware of and to know.
Right.
It's a skill that should be taught.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I'll ask this question a little bit later, because I think you all probably do this, but you know, no one was going to school no one here is going to college in the land of Google, or, you know, technological things that are useful to kids today. You know, you guys were all going to school at a time where that was not available. So, you know, it was trying to get a verbal test and trying to do things that way, and just a lot of hard work. So, okay, so does anyone else have anything they want to share about their school experience before we kind of shift a little bit to career?
Well, one thing I would say is, so I have children right now that are 6th, 7th, or no, 7th, 8th, and I think if I was in school today, it would be much more difficult
Mm,
when I was younger. And just the way that they're on these different classrooms that list out all their assignments, um, it's for me, I always had to have things a set way that I wrote down, and the fact that they have to read off of their computers and they're not having
mm,
textbooks where they can highlight. And I would print everything out and scribble notes, and they just don't do that today. And I think it has to be much harder for children with learning disabilities to learn. Much more
interesting.
difficult.
Jeff, I
That's
think
interesting.
that's an excellent comment. I had a master's degree in audiology, and then um, later in my career, audiology went to a doctorate level, and my colleagues that had master's degrees all did online college classes and to get their doctorate of audiology degree. And I didn't, partly because I was so close to retirement, and Mayo didn't really care one way or the other whether I had it. So I didn't do it. But I think deep down, a large part of the reason I didn't do it is because online in the chat rooms and so forth, where you have to type things that other people are going to be reading, my spelling is poor, and I certainly didn't want to put that out to people. So I think that had a real impact on me that I kind of put aside because I didn't need it and so forth. But that played a role, and that's what you're kind of saying, Jeff, is
Mhm.
some of those things today that we didn't have to deal with would be more difficult.
Yeah, I guess it was. Do the rest of you agree that some a tool that you use is tangibly being able to hold and manipulate papers or write on things and write notes to yourself about your schedule or what you've read or what's happening. I can see if you're having to navigate that entirely online, that's a whole different set of skills and challenges for sure.
Well, we were always taught to write out the word, and now you're typing out the word. I just don't feel for the kids that has the same. I don't feel they grasp it as
Right.
well as me
You're
right.
talking like with spell check.
Yeah, well, it's just like with anything. We used to always have to handwrite notes, and
Yeah.
Mhm.
you remember something, you write it down. Well, now they don't do that. They just type it on
No.
the
Right.
computer, and it seems like I have a daughter that's dyslexic, and it's a struggle for her that way.
Mhm.
And but they're not being taught to do it. There's really no way. Just not the way.
That's interesting. I thought of another question while, as you all were talking about your college experience, and I don't know about all of your professions and whether or not you needed to do, licensing tests or things. Were those, to kids who are thinking, I don't know if I want to go to law school because there's that big bar exam and that's kind of scary, or I don't know if I don't, what would I do if I don't know, Greg, if there's, a test that you do to be a licensed plumber or something. Are those experiences that you see a dyslexic student being able to advocate for, accommodations if they were to go into different programs or professions like you all are in? Did any of you take it? I guess maybe we'll say, did any of you take advantage of potential accommodations as you went through licensing for what you needed in your careers?
Well, I can speak to that.
Okay.
There were no accommodations.
Mm.
That wasn't an option. So you just had to study hard and apply yourself. And I think it's like so many other things in life. As you mature and go through school and have success, you are able to take on more things.
Mhm.
When you're in middle school, you look back at elementary school and you say, "Oh my gosh, we had recess and it was so easy." And then when you're in high school, you look back at middle school and you say, "Oh my gosh, that was so easy." And when you're in college, you look at high school and say the same thing. And so as you progress through and you have success and you develop your skills and however it is that you're able to compensate and do workarounds for what you need to be successful, you're able to take on more. So by the time I wouldn't be saying to somebody who's in middle school or high school, gosh, you should be worrying about the bar exam. Yes, it's an exam that you have to prepare mightily for, but that's not where you are right now. You shouldn't be thinking about that. You should really be thinking about, do I want to go on and to a university or to a college, and what might be a good program for me that I might be interested in? Because by the time you get to the next level, you'll be prepared for that. Don't look at the top of the mountain. Look at a step or two in front of you, and you'll be able to reach your goal ultimately. So
That's good advice.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I have just kind of a little anecdote about different, testing and so forth. I graduated from high school with honors and had just under a 4-point average. But then I still had to take my entrance exam for college. And I got a call from whoever, I don't know if it was a dean or whoever, because they couldn't understand how I could have such a high grade point average and do so poorly on my entrance exam, because I had to write an essay or whatever, and my spelling was poor and so forth. And they did let me in, fortunately. But that was an example of a test that certainly didn't show my capabilities.
Right. Anyone else have anything they want to share about those kinds of experiences, or we can move on to? So you're all doing something, either some of you are retired, some of you are moving toward retirement, and some of you are still in your careers. Talk a little bit about the benefit and, the benefit and the hardship of having dyslexia in your careers. So maybe we'll start with Jeff this time.
It's a good question.
Yeah.
I would say I still am a horrible writer. I would say I might have a skill set of a 5th or 6th grader when I write, but I've developed a mentality that I don't really care, and when I send emails out to my employees, if they have an issue with grammar, well, it doesn't bother me, or if I send it out to a person in the industry. I've gotten over that. And the biggest, so that's still been hard. I want to write better, but I just can't. And I don't have the time to proof every email that I send out. The biggest benefit, I would say, is through dyslexia, it just taught me how to work hard. And it like what you said earlier about finding different words, our workarounds. Business is a workaround. I mean, in my life, you're always going to run into brick walls, and you have to be able to look at that brick wall and figure out, how am I going to get around it? And that's one of the skills I feel dyslexia has helped me with, is I'm always thinking of ways around certain things. Oh, that's a challenge. Well, if we do this and this, we can get through it. And I think most people can't look at problems that way. And I think most people struggle looking at things out of the box. And, out of the box is just the way I feel lots of dyslexics always had to think. We're always thinking out of the box. And it comes natural to us, and other people look at us and they can be envious, because we're always thinking of new ideas, new things, new successes. We won this, well, let's go on to this. Feel like we're never happy. Sometimes we always want more. But I would still say that, it's still a challenge to write. I still struggle with that.
Yeah, but I love your answer about what what the strength of what dyslexia has given you, that it's,
Yeah.
you know, it's a problem solving gene, I guess,
Yeah.
in you. Yeah. We'll go to you, Greg. What are some of the hardships of having dyslexia in your business, and then what do you see as a strength?
Well, the people that I work around all know I have dyslexia, that I'm dyslexic. They all know it. And I feed off of them for their help because, I look at them as being brilliant. Why can't I do that? But yet, I surround surround myself with people like that because I feel I know how to lead
Mm-hmm.
and bring everybody together and feed off of their strengths. And yes, we do work harder. We think out of the box. Well, who can I find to help me with this? And use their talent to help everybody as a team and keep things going for the struggle that I have. And today, still like writing a letter, I'll attempt to write a letter, and then I'll bring in my Angie, who's worked with me for years. I'll bring her in and she goes, "You want me to read that letter, don't you?" And I said, "Yes, please." And she'll critique it and say, "This is all wrong. I know what you want to say. Do you care if I write it?" And I say, "Please do." So she'll write it. She'll write the whole letter, and she'll take what I had, like 3 pages, and put it into a paragraph. And I'm rambling, and she can do it in a paragraph. So I say, "Thank you." And she goes, "You're welcome," and walks out, and I hit send. And then that's what I do. I just can't do it. But when it comes to math, numbers, stuff like that, I have no problem with that. And, back to licensing, taking tests and all that,
Mm-hmm.
back when I took them, you had to struggle through it. I prayed that I passed. You just pray, pass, 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 pass. And shazam, you do it. But we also have to realize that we're going to be the first ones to fail. And we've accepted failure so many times that when we do pass, it's a Macy's Day Parade.
Yeah. Good
I hate to say that, but we do work harder. But yet, surrounding yourself with great people that understand your problem, they'll feed off of you. And then another thing is, I've had staff and employees bring their kids in, and I can talk to a kid in 10, 15 minutes and tell if he's dyslexic or she's dyslexic or not, just by tricks that I've been told by Gene Osmond and listening. I can tell right away that, hey, you better take this kid down here and I'll show you where to go. And there's quite a few students that have come out of the reading center that I've kind of figured out, because all of us, I really think, know a person within 10, 15 minutes what they're struggling with.
Okay.
We've been there.
Spot that. Sure. No, that makes a lot of sense.
Thought of like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But surround your people with great people that know, that feed off, we feed off their strengths.
Yeah. I love that answer. How about you, Anne? When you're working weaknesses of dyslexia, but also strengths.
Okay. Well, I would say ditto to what he just said. Surrounding yourself with good people is so important. I knew at a very young age that I needed to have a job where I would have a secretary because I could never be one. And I've had good secretaries, and I always make sure they know how important they are and how appreciated they are. I've always said the clinic would have to close its doors if all the secretaries walked out, because they are so supportive. And fortunately, my audiology career and working with deaf people, my inability to spell and so forth really wasn't a terrible problem. I did have to write journal articles and so forth, but I had secretaries that could help me, and by then we had spell check and Google and all that sort of thing. So I didn't really have a whole lot of trouble in my career.
Yeah, good. That's a great point. How about you, Carl?
Well, I would kind of reiterate what other people have said. For me, um, I'm sort of a tactile learner where if I'm going to give a presentation, I need to sit down with a pad of paper and a pen. I need to write it out. I need to read it. I can't just type it out and have it upstairs and ready to go. Um, so that's been sometimes a challenge for me. Um, on the other hand, I think that Jeff's comments about just being naturally open and always looking for workarounds and other solutions has been a real benefit, and looking for other people, kind of support people. I think those are things that dyslexics often turn to or learn as they are growing up, and can incorporate those into their professional lives and do. So I think that's a
No,
big benefit.
yeah, that's great. No, I loved all those answers that you gave. Um, in our sort of closing 15 minutes, I think I would love to hear, going from childhood to adulthood and into career, some of the advice that you would give to parents and students and teachers. So let's start with to the parents out there who are listening to this. What advice do you have as adults who've been through this? What advice do you want to give parents? So we'll go back the other way. We'll start with Carl and go backwards.
Sure. So um, I have dyslexia in my family. My father, although never diagnosed, and I have a younger sister. But when my wife and I started to have children, we were very aware of this could be a challenge for them, or that one of our children could. And so our youngest, who graduated from high school just 2 years ago, right when he was entering school, we were aware that he was having some problems with his reading and grasping of things that we didn't see with his older brother and sister. So I would say that if you have concerns, you should try to immediately get your child tested, and through the reading center, access the support systems through the school. He was tested, found to be dyslexic. We got him hooked up with a wonderful tutor who's now retired, but she really worked with him really all through grade school and middle school and high school. And when you are, and he had an IEP, so there would be some accommodations for him, some additional time, some additional materials, things that I didn't, there weren't, those things didn't happen when I was growing up. So also working with the tutor and the teachers and trying to build a team. So really speaking with your child's teacher early and often about the challenges and what they can do to assist. I think sometimes people see that they might see the teacher or someone in school as an opponent as opposed to a team member. So really trying to bring people in. And I would have to give a lot of credit to my wife, who did an amazing job just making sure when our son was starting another grade to reach out ahead of time and with emails and calls and really trying to build that kind of team mentality. And he had a lot of challenges, but also a lot of successes. And now he's at the University of Minnesota and making that transition. And I'm sure it's challenging for him, especially in the age of COVID with all online learning, but he has a good solid base. So I think really seeing it as a team effort, and also talking about your child. You don't want a child to be embarrassed or not talk about it or feel that they can't share those things with their teachers or friends. Those are all things that I would encourage, and I guess get educated as a parent so you can be an effective advocate.
No, that's good. Let's jump to Jeff as the other, parent of young kids here. What is your advice as a both a dyslexic and as the parent of a dyslexic? What advice do you give parents?
The advice I would give to parents is to get your child into a tutor as soon as you can. And that's something that I have a daughter that is dyslexic, so, and I'm starting to realize she's more severe than I thought. And she has struggled, and we are going back into tutoring for her because of that. And it's something that, I think the more tutoring, the better. I think, maybe you can do it for a year or two, but maybe you might have a child that might need tutoring for 5 to 7 years. And I've noticed that with my daughter is I feel like I quit tutoring when she was too young, and I wish I would have stayed with it just because of how she's now struggling in school. And yeah, I mean, that's to me, that's what it's all about. It's about supporting your child, realizing that, they probably feel less than average at school. And when they come home, they need us as parents to pick them up and to motivate them. And sometimes it's hard, being a parent and being a teacher at the same time. And that's where a tutor can come in and help. And I notice as the kids get a little older and they get in their teenage years, the last thing they like maybe hearing is from, mom and dad, on reviewing their work. And that's where a tutor can help too. So I'm a big advocate for finding a tutor for your child.
Yeah, great. How about you, Anne? What advice would you have for parents?
Yeah, certainly it's the same thing that has been said. But I guess something else is when we're dealing with our children and they're coming home sad because they're feeling less capable and so forth, I think it's good to remember that we really are part of a really intelligent, smart group of people. We think of the writers and the painters and all the creative people who have dyslexic and are very famous and very smart. I think it's good for parents and in the students themselves to remember that they're probably as smart or a lot smarter than a lot of their friends that are having an easier time. It's just they have to work so hard to realize that potential. And something for parents to think about also is those very smart people are also in jail. There are a lot of people in jail that are dyslexic and went on the wrong path because of that frustration. So it's kind of critically important that we direct these children in positive ways and build them up and let them know that they really are very smart, but just not in this area. So I guess for parents to look at their child and think with their child, what does that child love to do, and to really try and support what he's good at and what he loves to do, and kind of steer that creative, happy part of the child towards a career and future happiness.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Anne. How about you?
Me?
Yes. Sorry, Greg, your turn.
I would say my son, we only had one child, my son, he had no problems with school. But when a parent sees their child come home and does not want to go back to school, has negative things to say about the school work itself, not recess, not lunch, not sports, then there's definitely something wrong. Because there's the reason for it. They're not, if you want to say not, they're capable of learning. It's just that they've hit the wall and they need advice or help to get around that wall what we've all said. So that's when you should have them review. What Ann was saying is, I know of a girl that is going to the reading center where you said your makeup. She did her makeup the same way, and I was listening to the person in the office say this, like she would do it like this, and then her hair, and then if it wasn't right, she'd start all over again. And she'd get frustrated. But, you know, big thing is when they come home and say, I hate it, or they start hiding their homework. I was a patrol boy. I'd hide my homework in the patrol room and not take it home. And my parents would say, do you have any homework? No. Well, they found it. It was in the patrol room. I wouldn't bring it home because I did not like to do it. That's when you start, there is a problem then. That's when you find it.
No, good points. In our closing minutes, I'm going to ask one more question, and I'll just tell anyone who's listening that each one of these Hall of Fame members put a very nice piece of advice for students up on our website, so you can read all of theirs and the other Hall of Fame panelists up there as well. But I wanna let them give them the opportunity to give a piece of advice to any students who are listening, you know, as sort of our last question. So we'll start up at the top and we'll start with Ann and we'll end with you, Greg. So Ann, what is a piece of advice that you would give to any student who's listening to this tonight?
Thank you. Actually, I wrote them down because I gave this a lot of thought. I said, know that you're really smart, but it may not show at school yet. Accept the fact that you have to work harder than on some of the things than your friends. But this will pay off in your life. So working hard is good. Use spell check, and sometimes spell check says, really, you gotta be kidding me. But sometimes it'll list 3 or 4 words that it might be and you're not sure. Then look up that word, use that feature of your computer to look up that word and make sure that it's the one you want. And then of course, Google and Siri, now you can just ask them how to spell the word. So that's a helpful thing. Figure out what you really love to do and figure out how to make what you love to do into a career. And then the last thing is make sure you have a good secretary.
Oh, that's great. How about you, Carl? Advice to students?
Well, I'd just say keep trying, keep at it. You will get better at it. It won't necessarily get a lot easier, but you'll get better at dealing with it. And you will find things that you truly enjoy, and then you should pursue those things. And it'll turn out okay.
Good. Thank you. Jeff?
Well, it's tough following Ann and Carl. They gave such great advice. You're not stupid, know that. And the only advice I can give you is do what you love. If you do what you love, and you wake up every morning and you're excited to go to work, nobody will be able to beat you. And make sure you choose something that you enjoy to do, whatever that is. If it's to be an airline pilot, if it's to be a doctor, an attorney, whatever, just make sure whatever you choose in life, you have a passion for it and you'll be successful.
Great. All right, Greg, you get the last word here.
I sure like Jeff's answer there because that to me was big. Finding something that you want to do. Don't do what your peers want you to do, because if you're going to do what somebody else wants you to do, you're not going to succeed. Do what you want to do and do it good. And always listen. Don't try to answer everything right away. Find some older person that knows more than you and listen to what they say. And another thing is, don't start talking about something unless you know what you're talking about. because then you're just going to get yourself deeper into trouble. And enjoy life because it's very short. And be happy with yourself. Feel good about your success, about yourself, even if you fail. We all fail. And that's how you learn the most, is when you fail, you're going to come out better.
Oh, that's
There you go.
a good way to end that, Greg. I appreciate all of you for sharing your insights. I think it was really I learned a lot. I think it was really helpful. I think other people will really take to heart what you all said and what you shared. So thank you very much for spending time with everyone and being willing to do this, because it's great. So I appreciate you all. And I'll say I will shut the recording off now. So one
Can
more.
I say one thing?
Yep.
Can I say one thing?
Yep.
If any of these parents that are listening want to talk to, I'm sure any of us here, on a phone call or an email, we would be glad to talk to them. I know that I've been out with the Reading Center in front of civic groups and all that, and you get some people that want to come up afterwards and want to talk one-on-one. You know, we're not going to give our whole life to you, but we'll give you 5-10 minutes. But if they want to call and talk to one of us, have them call.
Perfect.
At least me, I'll talk to somebody.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. So when we put this up on the website and when we share this out over email, I will encourage people to get in touch with me if they would like to,
Yeah.
with any of you. And that's a wonderful offer. So if anyone wants to talk about the Reading Center specifically, I'm happy to do that. If anyone wants to reach out and talk to any of you, let me know that too, and we'll try to make that happen. So thanks for that offer. Yeah. So thank you again. Enjoy the rest of your snowy evening.
Sure.
Thanks, Sarah.